Ça passe une fois par an, demandez la charité. Friends, neighbors, and near and far, welcome to the first and hopefully last New Haven Free Public Library virtual Mardi Gras celebration. Je m'appelle Michel Moran. My name is Michael Moran. I am president of the board of directors of the New Haven Free Public Library Foundation. It's so great to have you with us. The slides that you saw before we began showed what it was like here last year and in previous years. Some people wonder, why a Mardi Gras in New Haven? Well, the answer is we had our first Mardi Gras fundraiser back in 1997 to celebrate the 110th birthday of the New Haven Free Public Library, which first opened on February 21st, 1887. It was such a great event in 1997 that we decided to make it an annual tradition, and we've had Mardi Gras parties at the library, for the library, ever since, for more than 2 decades. We're not going to let COVID keep us down, and inspired by our friends in New Orleans who've swerved so beautifully with house floats and other new traditions, we've decided that the show will go on this year virtually. And we have a great show for you tonight. Some great poets, some great music, some great New Haveners. So stay with us. Our tradition is fairly young by New Orleans and Louisiana standards. And I asked one of our dear friends, Ryan Andre Brasseau, to tell us a little bit about traditions in Cajun, Louisiana, that he knows so well. So let's hear from Ryan.
Happy Mardi Gras. My name is Ryan Brasseau. I'm originally from Cajun, Louisiana, but for the past 15 years, I've called the Elm City home. In my section of Louisiana, Mardi Gras looks a little different. Masked horsemen ride from rural home to rural home, spreading merriment and asking for ingredients for a communal gumbo held later that evening. As the old Cajun song goes, Les Mardi Gras ça vient une fois par an, demandez la charité. Come but once a year to ask for your charity. Tonight, let the Mardi Gras spirit move you. Here's your chance to offer your charity to one of the greatest communal goods, the New Haven Free Public Library.
So we're making a communal gumbo tonight virtually with lots of elements, but we also actually have some real New Orleans traditions, including this king cake. And I don't know about you, but my mama always told me, never eat king cake by yourself, always find people to eat it with. And I'm so happy to be joined as co-host tonight with one of New Haven's greatest centurions, my dear sister in spirit, sister in books, the president of the board of directors of the New Haven Free Public Library, Shana Schneider.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Mardi Gras. I'm welcoming you into our New Haven Free Public Library, and it is my pleasure to be hosting you here tonight. So I do hope you've gotten your mask. I don't know if you can see mine. I had this one specially made for me. Maybe you might even recognize this literary character. I'll give it away momentarily. But of course, the New Haven Free Public Library has actually hosted nearly 700,000 visitors, both online and in person over the course of the last year. And of course, online is so important. And so while our doors might be closed in some of our locations, the library is open 24/7, of course, online and all of those different ways to access the library. And in fact, we have had curbside service and has delivered nearly 38,000 books through curbside delivery. And so books like this, and you can even see maybe this one in multiple different languages, because we serve a wide variety of people throughout our community. And I am excited to also let you know about our brand new website. So if you haven't seen it, I'm going to encourage you to check it out because, in fact, you can access it in over 50 different languages. So access is, of course, so important and top priority because we really have a diverse community here in New Haven, and the library is really made up of all of those different people. And it is my pleasure to actually introduce a video that is coming from community members sharing what they love about the New Haven Free Public Library.
Hi, my name is Marina Manmalejo, and I'm the entrepreneur in residence at the New Haven Free Public Library. And to me, the library represents a space where community members can meet each other, whether that's virtual or in person, and just really build each other up and be cheerleaders for each other and make sure that New Haven is a safe and welcoming space, because everyone who goes to the library, in my opinion, has the community's best interest at heart.
Hi everybody, my name is Caroline and I'm one of the co-directors of Collab, a program that supports entrepreneurs. To me, the library is a place where anyone, if they have an idea, can turn that idea into a business, an organization, or a project that can positively impact their community. Thank you so much to the library for all that you do for the city that we love.
I can't think of another place in the city that feels more open and welcoming than the New Haven Public Library. I love it there. Love you guys. Keep up the good work.
The New Haven Free Public Library is a place to think big, read more, and be in community.
La biblioteca de Fairhaven sigue siendo una institución comunitaria integral. Me encantan las colecciones electrónicas, estoy agradecido por el personal interminable servicial. El equipo de administración de la comunidad de Fairhaven está emocionado de regresar eventualmente a su hogar de reunión.
Thank you for our library books that you got us. We love them so much. The roadside pickup is wonderful, and also thank you for letting us, because some of the books are the same gradient that I'm supposed to use, so it helps me with homeschool. Thank you!
That's right. So many people who love the library, sharing what they get from it. And still, even in this time of the pandemic, that access is right here. Now, I will say, did anyone guess what this is? I gave a little hint with the Lorax there, right? So I hope throughout the evening, you'll participate with us, share your comments, share your favorite literary character, share what you love about the New Haven Free Public Library. But it's not just books, right? You get access to ebooks, to music, to movies, and what's so important right now, access to free internet, right? And there are hotspots. In fact, we had over 500,000 logins last year through the library. And right now we are lending actually free Wi-Fi hotspots, free with a library card. And with kind of an explanation of so many more of our services, we have a special message from our New Haven Mayor, Justin Elliker.
Happy Mardi Gras, New Haven. I know we were in person last year, and I can't wait to see you all once again. Despite that, we have a wonderful program for you tonight with some of our nation's leading poets, lively music, local leaders, and a special announcement on the Stetson Library. I want to take a moment to highlight the hard work of the New Haven Free Public Library over the past year. Despite all the challenges they faced, their fundraising these past months has focused on digital equity and inclusion, and how the library helps to bridge that digital divide in New Haven. Just this year, we have had much success under our belts and even more to go. New Haven Free Public Library is fine-free as of July 1st, 2020. The library is now lending Wi-Fi hotspots, Chromebooks, and Ives Main Library and Wilson Library have been transformed into neighborhood Wi-Fi hotspots. The library has a robust schedule of virtual programs that have attracted nearly 50,000 viewers. And you can access curbside pickup for books, DVDs, and other materials. I hope you all can take a moment to support New Haven Free Public Library this year. Whether it's a donation of a book, a small amount of money, or just to show up at one of our awesome events. We wouldn't have had such a successful library network in our city if it weren't for all of you. Thanks, New Haven, and enjoy the Mardi Gras celebration.
Thank you, Mayor Elliker. and thanks to the Board of Alders, and thanks to all the citizens of New Haven. The citizens are the main supporters of this library day in and day out, and we're so grateful for the mayor and the Board of Alders acting on their wishes and providing support for the New Haven Free Public Library. When we thought, what would we do this year for the virtual Mardi Gras celebration, we knew we couldn't recreate through video the fantastic open bar that's generally here, all of the things that happen on site, but we wanted to do something, in fact, special, something a little different for this celebration to mark it and to tide us over to 2022 when we can be together in person. And I'm so glad that 3 of the nation's greatest poets agreed to join us live tonight. They're all poets who I think we can claim as New Haveners. Reginald Dwayne Betts actually does live in New Haven with his family, as many of us know Dwayne as a neighbor, as a civic activist, as a leader in this community. And 2 other poets, Toi Derricotte and Cornelius Eady, 2 of the nation's greats, founders of Cave Canem, the nation's home for Black poetry. Toi and Cornelius, in a way, live in New Haven too, because their literary archives, their papers, along with the records of Cave Canem, are right here in New Haven at the Beinecke Library in the Yale University Library. So I think we can claim Cornelius and Toi as New Haveners, just like Dwayne. It's now my honor and privilege to turn the screen over to Dwayne to lead a conversation and keynote for us with Cornelius and Toi.
Yeah, I gotta say, this is one of those great honors. You know, when I met the 2 of you, I didn't have a beard, and it wasn't gray, right?
Yeah.
And you know, and it's a pleasure actually be in the presence of, you know, my elders and to talk about poetry and literature on this occasion. And I want to do a few things. I want to talk about our connection to New Orleans. I know we all have connections to New Orleans, but I also want to talk about what it means to create a legacy and build a legacy. And then frankly, I want to spend some time just saying thank you, because I recognize how much you too have given up as artists and as poets to nurture so many young folks. And so I thought to begin, the audience might not know who you are, Cornelius, and we'll forget him for that. But I thought the best way to introduce a poet to introduce themselves is always like with a song. So I figured I would ask each of you to read a poem. And I said your name first, Cornelius, but actually I want Toi to go first. Because my mama might be watching this and she can be like, what? Did you forget your manners? So Toi, would you please introduce yourself with a poem?
Sure. I thought about reading for the library audience, and so I went to my computer and typed in the word library to see if I had any poems that I haven't worked on in there. And I pulled up a poem and I started working on it today. I probably wrote it several years ago. Library of my heart. Who could love a book more than a man with a tear-shaped jewel magnifying glass held up against one eye, holding the book open with his hand, his eye pressed to each letter, his head almost unmoving? How long will a page take? Insinuations forming slowly in his brain like fog clearing, coming together in a recognizable gotcha. Time must measure differently than the speed we get emails. His time up close and personal. He might imagine a new room for which he doesn't yet know the purpose. The room opening wider as each letter clears, each bit of information gathering like the crystals of a chandelier with 1,000 branches, until finally it turns on, shining from its core, flooding the indescribable stacks of a ravenous wondering. Whatever is written on the flashing apertures of the brain, on the sloshing muscle of the heart.
Mm. All right, I got something to say about that, but I want Cornelius to follow that so that I don't
All right.
get in the way.
Absolutely. Well, I'll read. First of all, I just want to say thanks for inviting us. Number two, it's wonderful to be in a library because libraries had such a great impact on my formation as a poet. When I was a baby poet, how I learned to read was to go to the library and get the poetry books, that were there. I got my music taste by going to the AV department there because we didn't have a record player. We're that poor, didn't have a record player. So libraries really have a lot to do with me. And when I started to learn to write poetry, in the lobby of the Rundle Memorial Library in Rochester, New York, where I grew up, there was a machine that dispensed pencils for 5 cents and a machine that dispensed a notepad for 25 cents. So I would go in and put in my nickel and put in my quarter, and then go sit down at one of the great big desks and dream one day that I'd write something that would allow me to have a book that would be in the library at some point, right? So libraries mean a lot to me. But I'm going to read.
Gratitude?
No, I couldn't read. All right, I wasn't going to read gratitude, but I'm going to read gratitude now. So I might as well, as a way of saying thank you, right, for a lot of things. Gratitude. I'm here to tell you an old story. This appears to be my work. I live in the world, walk the streets of New York, this dear city. I want to tell you, I'm 36 years old. I have lived in and against my blood. I want to tell you, I am grateful because after all, I am a Black American poet. I'm 36 and no one has to tell me about luck. I mean, after a reading, someone asked me once, if you weren't doing this, what, if anything, would you be doing? And I didn't say, but we both understood. I'm a Black American male. I own this particular story on this particular street at this particular moment. This appears to be my work. I'm 36 years old, and all I have to do is repeat what I notice over and over. All I have to do is remember. And to the famous poet who thinks literature holds no small musics, love. And to the publishers who believe in their marrow, there's no profit on the fringes, love. And to those who need the promise of wind, the sound of branches stirring beneath the line, here's another environment poised to open. Everyone reminds me what an amazing odyssey I'm undertaking, as well they should. After all, I'm a Black American poet, and my greatest weakness is an inability to sustain rage. Who knows what'll happen next? This appears to be one for the books if you train your ears for what's unstated beneath the congratulations. That silence is my story, the pure celebration and shock of my face, defying its gravity, so to speak. I claim this tiny glee not just for myself, but for my parents who shook their heads. I'm older now than my father was when he had me, which is no big deal, except I have personal knowledge of the wind that tilts the head back. And I claim this loose seed in the air glee on behalf of the social studies teacher I had in the 10th grade, a real bastard who took me aside after class the afternoon he heard I was leaving for a private school just to let me know. He expected me to drown out there, that I held the knowledge of the drowned man, the regret of ruined flesh in my eyes. This was fair enough, except I believe I've been teaching far longer now than he had that day, and I know the blessing of a narrow escape. And I claim this rooster pull down morning glee on behalf of anyone who saw me coming and said yes, even when I was loud, cocky, insecure, even when all they could have seen was the promise of a germ, even when it meant yielding ground. I am a bit older than they were when I walked into that room or class or potty, and I understand the value of the unstated push. A lucky man gets to sing his name. I have survived long enough to tell a bit of an old story. And to those who defend poetry against all foreign tongues, love. And to those who believe a drop clause signifies encroachment, love. And to the bullies who need the musty air of the clubhouse all to themselves, I am a brick in a house that is being built around your house. I'm 36 years old, a Black American poet. Nearly all the things that weren't supposed to occur has happened anyway. And I have a natural inability to sustain rage, despite the evidence. And I have proof, and a job that comes as simple to me as breathing.
You know, I'm 40, and then the first time I heard that poem, I probably was 26, and it was so much of life. And I hear those two poems in my head, and I two stories, and then I got a question.
Okay.
The library poem, I remember when I was in the county jail, right? They had a library cart that would come around, and I wore contacts before I got locked up, and so when I was in prison, when I was in the jail, I couldn't wear contacts because it was the filthiest environment ever, right? And they just wouldn't let you. And I didn't have glasses because they didn't have an eye doctor to give me glasses that I could wear. And so when the library cart would come around, I would literally just like pick out books based on what the spine looked like. And when the book came to me, I would hold it up to my eye as if I had a magnifying glass, and I would be like this, trying to read it. And so listening to your piece, Toy, just reminds me of those days and reminds me how it's a lot of life to be found in a library. And Cornelius, I hear that poem and I just think about the time that has passed, since the first time I heard it, which probably would have been like 2000. It would have been at the 20th anniversary of Cave Canem.
Mm-hmm.
And even listening then, I didn't recognize like how improbable my own life would be. 40 years old now, published a few books, but actually been invited to lead a conversation with the two of you. And so I want to ask two questions, and I want to split them up. And the first question you already answered, Cornelius, so I want to go to Toy and say, what is your earliest memory of a library? Or maybe not even earliest, but what is your most significant memory of a library?
First of all, I want to say that I remember you, Dwayne, the first year that you were at Cave Canem, and how wonderful your stories were, and how much we hoped those stories would get written. They were incredible stories, and you were so memorable. So it's just amazing to see the talent and the brilliance and what you've done. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
It's a lot of work, though, isn't it?
I'm telling you.
But I remember when I went to Catholic school, those were the days when your parents let you walk home from school. I had to walk 10 blocks, and I guess I was about 8 years old. And those were also the days when libraries were your babysitter. If you wanted to go into the library and hang out for a couple hours in the afternoon, nobody would ask you, where's your mom, or anything like that. And so the library, the Detroit Library, the main Detroit Library, and the museum were mirror buildings across from each other in Detroit. And I'd go some days into the museum with the Rodin sculpture right in front, the thinker, or I'd go across the street to the library. And entering the library felt like I was entering, now I can describe it almost like a room in myself that had a special something that I recognized as for me. I did a lot of figuring out what I was supposed to do to make sure that I was treated okay or I wouldn't get in trouble. But when I walked through those doors, I had the sense of it being almost like a place in my brain now when I'm writing a poem.
Yeah, it's like that. Yeah.
No, it's cool because I'm a cheat now, right? Yeah, I know y'all know this book. And but if you see this is Elizabeth's book though.
Yeah. We know.
My first year, I was there and I was talking to her and I was like, and I it's crazy. This is how the libraries connect, right? I'm in a prison library. And Cornelius, I've never said this publicly, and I apologize for saying it now, but I wrote you while I was in prison and you didn't write me back.
I never got the letter, man.
No, I know, but this is, but let me tell you why you never got the letter.
Okay.
Because I was a fool. I didn't know. I read a book. One, I had no sense of like the copyright page. I had no sense that writers like went to different universities. So I probably was reading like your second book. And I wrote to a university that you had long never went to, right? And I wasn't even mad that nobody wrote me back because everybody I wrote, I was writing at the school that they had taught at like a decade earlier, right? So I'm sure that somebody was getting these letters like, who is this fool? Like I don't even have a forwarding address.
I get that, yeah.
But I got lucky. I was at one spot and they had interlibrary loan, and so I had read one of Elizabeth's books, and I wanted to read the next one. And these people said, oh, we could get it from interlibrary loan. I was like, what is that? And it's like, oh, we got a partnership with the public library, so we'll send it to you. So when I met her, I was just like taken aback that one, I was in her presence. And I just asked her for a book. I was like, give me something. And she gave me the book that she read from, and it has all of her sticky notes. And I mean, it has like the notes in the margins.
Yeah.
And so what I wonder, right, is if you could meet a writer and get them to give you the book that they toured with, right?
Yeah.
And particularly a writer that you wanted to talk to that for whatever reason you couldn't reach out to, what writer would you want to have like that tour book from? Like who has meant so much to you that you would love not to just have their words, but have what they think about their own words?
Well, I'll tell you a story. That's not quite that story, but it has to do with the library. When I was in my baby poet days and I was reading poetry, I fell across Robert Bly's The Light Around the Body in the stacks and just fell in love with the book and looked at the card, right? So no one was checking it out. So I liberated the book. right. Years later, I'm interviewing Bly on a cable show, right? And in between takes, I feel emboldened to tell him how much I love that book, right? I want to tell you, it's the only book I ever stole, right? I want to tell you, I was a kid in Rochester, and that's the only book I ever stole. And I thought it was going to be so damn impressive. He was like, you stole the book. You stole the book. No. It was like it's like I wanted my idol to understand how deeply I love that book. Right. It didn't quite work, but that's what it was. I'm talking. I get the desire. I get what you're talking about, Reggie. I get what you mean with that, right? You get so in there that it's like suddenly. Because that's what you're doing. You're having a conversation with literature, right? That's the start of the conversation that writers have, right? So if you're lucky enough to get someone would give you their reader's copy, which I've done, a number of times over the years. There's just, somebody's there, you're like, hey, nothing else. They can't buy that. They clearly can't buy a book, So you give them your reader's copy. But I know that you want to touch that writer. You want to communicate with that writer. You want that writer to to understand how much you've been moved by what they've written, right? So yeah, that's that conversation.
What do you think, Toi?
Well, I was just thinking, I'm glad I had a little while to think about it. Question. And, I remember seeing a handwritten poem by Jerry Stern because the University of Pittsburgh has his papers.
Yeah.
And it was on a paper plate. He had written it on a half of a paper plate. And that was the poem. And it was so different than knowing him. I know him very well, or reading the poem in the book. There's something it gave me about him and the handwriting and I'm sure you felt that way about Elizabeth's book.
Yeah.
I think what I would like is to read the books, and I could maybe get this from a library, of Audre Lorde and Adrienne Rich. They were friends,
Yeah.
And I think to see the handwriting, I know they exchanged letters. It would be a wonderful thing.
Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry, go ahead.
You know who's wild? Have you? So I've been in the Bonneke where your papers are, and I was writing a review of Austin Reed's book, and Austin Reed was the first prison memoir ever. And the crazy thing is, he wrote it during the antebellum period. So he wrote it during the time of slavery. But he lived upstate in New York, and it's literally written in moleskins.
Oh, wow.
And what's like really funky about it, though, right, is that it's not just a prison memoir, right? It is a prison memoir that is essentially like, as a thinker and as a writer, he's trying to map his narrative, his story onto the popular adventure stories of the day. And it is such a fantastic read. But I went to the Bonneke and I tried to go in with my laptop, and they was like, no, you need to put that laptop in a cubby. And then I tried to go in with a pencil, and they was like, no, you need to put that pencil in the cubby too. and they didn't tell me to pull out a nickel, but they said you could use this little small pencil here to take notes. Right? And like they had these weights for it because it only got discovered like a decade ago because it was in somebody's private records, right? And just looking at his handwriting, he didn't write in paragraphs. His handwriting was better than all of our handwriting. It was just beautiful. And it was basically written in moleskins. And so I know that feeling of like going into the archives.
Yeah.
But I would be remiss if I didn't tell the audience what Cave Canem is. I think that you guys have built a kind of legacy that you guys are really the you guys ushered my existence in a life. I knew about Cave Canem when I was in prison. And it's hard to get news in prison. I knew about Cave Canem in prison. So Cave Canem is an organization that the two of you founded, and the organization brings together every summer more than 50 Black poets, but also 7 leading lights, and you have workshops every day. Yeah. And I'm like, I talk about this, and maybe I'm saying that the prisons I was in wasn't as tough as they might have been, but I cried like my second day locked up, and then didn't cry when I was in prison. And I went to prison at 16. I came home and I got into Cave Canem. I remember talking to Carol and telling her I'm getting in. And I was like, I was arrogant, I was like, I clearly had no idea what I was talking about, right? But I got in. In that first year, I met Elizabeth, I met Patricia Smith, right. I met Rita Dove, I met Lucille Clifton.
That was a great summer. I remember that one. Yeah.
And I remember like listening to Lucille Clifton talk. I mean, I afterwards I was trying to walk to lunch and I couldn't. I broke down in tears. I literally like was in like a parking lot somewhere, just like crying. And somebody pulled me to the side. I don't know who it was. It was Wendy Walters. And she was like, "You all right?" And she walked me back to the chow hall, not the chow hall because we weren't in prison, to the cafeteria. But what I would have asked the two of you about Cave Canem, which has a tremendous legacy though. Terrence, Terrence Hayes, Natasha Trethewey, Tahimba Jess, Jericho Brown, Randall Horton, John Mario, Rachel Griffiths, Tracy K. Smith. I mean, you got the Pulitzer Prize winners, you got everybody has an NEA. People are just writing great work, and more than writing great work, I think we have built a community where all of us are in like kinship in which ways we wouldn't have otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so what I want to ask the two of you is reflecting on the very legitimate. I mean, the first poem I read in prison that fucked me up was Jericho Brown. I mean, I'm sorry, not Jericho Brown. Was DJ Renegade? Was Joel Diaz Porter?
Yeah. Renegade.
It was that Roberto Clemente poem, and
yeah. Oh yeah.
And so what I want to ask you is like, I mean, you guys have a legacy that extends, my entire like it makes me feel better about who I am because your legacy extends, my entire life basically. And so what I want to ask you is, how do you reflect upon that all of these years later, knowing how much you've accomplished?
Well, for me, it's overwhelming. It becomes more and more overwhelming. I mean, it's such a great joy to be there. You know that, your experience. When you're there and when you're with those poets, there's nothing like it. But, I was thinking about what I brought to Cave Canem. It might be my New Orleans heritage. Because, in New Orleans, everybody's kin. And everybody calls you Che. And, you're part of a huge community. And so maybe in some ways I brought up New Orleans to Cave Canem. But I feel that the great writers today, it was almost like, they were all there. And Cornelius and I sort of found a door in space and opened the door, and all these great writers were just waiting to explode out of the door. But it's overwhelming. I can't believe it. It's more than I can hold in gratitude. But I am very much in love with each one of you. Each one of the Cave Canem Fellows means a great deal to me.
Well, it really surprises me at times because I don't think about it all the time, to tell you the truth. But when I do think about it, it blows my mind, right? Like I'll be in a class and I'll be teaching, Jericho, right? I'll be teaching Tracy, and I'll be tracing, and so I realize, we actually pick these people, right? And then you start going backwards to all the, every single person Toi and I selected through the process, right? The application process, right? And we said yes to that one, and we said yes to this one, and said yes to that one. And it's like, and I also tell my students sometimes, I did lead a workshop with Jericho Brown. I was, he was actually a student. It blows your mind to think, that I would actually have that experience, right? So it's, I know what you mean. Kinship is really a good concept, Toi. I think we all bring our idea of what kin actually is to Cave Canem. It comes for me from a lot of different places. The literary community I grew up with in Rochester was pretty tight, and there was a particular poet named Srila Ray who was from India. And she was my mentor at Empire State College, and my undergraduate college. And I ended up living in her basement. My wife Sarah and I had our first apartment there. She had a house that was kind of like a hub. Anybody who came in to do a reading or anything to do with the arts, that's where you inevitably ended up, right? So these long dinners and conversations and stuff like that. I think another branch for me. And talk about libraries, so you may just make me realize all these other library connections that I have that I haven't always thought about. One is June Jordan's Poetry Center at Stony Brook that I took over after she left. Stony Brook, the Poetry Center, they don't do it now, unfortunately. I don't direct the program now, but when June was there and I was there, we had a legacy we had a little library, this little library for all these incredible poets that come from the Poetry Center. So it's also a library, but it was also a living room, right? The way that June set it up, and it was sort of like, and I kept that in, it's like this where you can this zone, this place where you could meet, right? And we can hear each other, right?
This is wild. This is wild because I got to tell you about the Million Book Project, and let's say two things, right? I wasn't even good when I got into Cave Canem. And I think it's like really easy for us poets to pretend like we were always like excellent, right? But you guys said yes to people who were still developing. You know, you said yes to people who were on the cusp or maybe wouldn't become anything. And I am like tremendously grateful for it as a writer. I was like fresh out of prison. I applied to the Fine Arts Work Center only because you were teaching there. And I was so mad. I never hated cancer more. So when it was like, Cornelius is not going to be here, I was like, why? And it was like, well, you know, he got sick. He's dealing with prostate cancer. He's going to be fine.
Oh, that was my cancer year. Oh, my God.
I was like, look, I told the people, I said, fuck prostate cancer. We need to,
yes.
But so I want to tell you about something else that connects to Elizabeth. And I want to ask you a question. So Elizabeth Alexander, she is now the president of Mellon. And I feel like, you know, America doesn't recognize the power and the strength and intelligence of poets and the actual like culture building that poets practice. And I think with Cave Canem, you were an exemplar of that, right? And so when I see Elizabeth as the president of Mellon, I actually see that as an extension of Cave Canem. So I had this wild idea to do this thing called the Million Book Project, and the Mellon Foundation funded it, right? And again, I think that's an extension of Cave Canem. They also funded the Lucille Clifton House, and they funded several initiatives that is rooted in, you know, all of the things that we love. But the Million Book Project is centered on trying to create these freedom libraries in prisons, and not just have them exist as bookshelves. Both of you are in front of bookshelves. And the thing is, I did 8.5 years in prison. I was never close to a bookshelf unless I was in the library. But my bookshelf is to the right of me. I can see your bookshelves. It's close to you. And so the principal idea of the project is to make bookshelves exist within the living space. And it's these 500 book freedom libraries that I want in the housing units.
Oh, yeah.
And because it does create community. I think books create community. And so my question to you then is like, what book, and it's a hard question, I know, it's probably 1,000 books you could name. But I think what 2 or 3 books would you name that you feel like was essential to your development as one, as a writer, and 2, like just as a person?
Too many books, man. I don't know, Toi. You got it. I know on that. My brain just starts to shut down because there's so many books, especially when I was just taking it in, you know. So.
Well, I know I started studying poetry when I moved to New York, and I was in my late 20s. And the first book I read was Ariel by Sylvia Plath. And what I knew, and that changed my life, is that there was a place for anger. I didn't know that there was any place in this world that anger could be expressed safely. Because in my childhood, you could be killed for being angry. And then when I read that book, it was like opening one of those doors.
Yeah.
And I could easily see how something so powerful could be made into something useful and even beautiful.
Yeah.
And that sold me.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking, what else would it be? The Dead Lecturer by Amir Baraka, you know, was a really important book for me, you know, because it was I actually saw. I didn't have a lot of role models. Like, you know, what you're saying about bookcases, right? It's basically we didn't have any bookcases in my house, right? We didn't have no nothing, right. So that was an alien concept, right? But I didn't see. There was a black poet in my neighborhood named Bobby Johnson, who was really a great. He published his own stuff. He would, you know, he actually just like this really cool black beat poet, right? You know, but I was a kid. You know what I mean? I mean, you know, it was like he was too old, and he was a really generous guy, and he never did any wrong. But I knew it was sort of like wasn't quite there, you know. But Mary Baraka, for some reason, or Leroy Jones when the book came out, right? That was kind of like, oh, look, oh, young black male, right? I mean, it's older than I am still, but not the same as old as Bobby was, and it looked like the sophisticated New York, poet living down there being black, and being black his way, right? And that really was that really had a big impact on me, right? So it's, I know what you mean. You end up with certain doors, right? A door will open when you read the poet. Suddenly you will shift what you think poetry is supposed to be about, right? Suddenly it's okay to be angry. Suddenly it's okay to declare yourself as a black person with a brain, right? You know what I mean? Like a thinking kind of guy with this sort of like cool urban kind of thing, right? And so you want to know who he is, right? And you want to know what your relationship is to that writer, right? Or can you be that person? I was also influenced a lot by the Beats, because I felt Beats work. Also what I got. So Howell had a big impact on me, only because it was sort of like, you could do that, right?
I should say. I should say that's what the work that both of you do like had on me. It made me be like, this is actually possible, and it's interesting because I met both of you through anthologies, and I think sometimes I feel like we don't pay enough attention to the way in which anthologies lead us to poets, and the way in which libraries lead us to anthologies. So I first read your work, Toi, and Clarence Major's "The Garden Thrives."
Yeah.
And I paid for that in a job that I was making 23 cents an hour for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's Every Shot I Ain't Sleep, and then it's The Garden Thrives, and that's how I'm introduced to both of you. And I guess I think we only have a few minutes left. And I know, right? We could do this forever.
I know.
It reminds me that I when the pandemic is over, I've been learning how to cook during the pandemic. I haven't learned how to make moonshine, but I've learned how to drink it. But what I want to do is I want to cook dinner for both of you. I'm gonna invite you guys to New Haven, and I'm gonna cook a meal for both of you.
I like that.
One piece mask are gone, man. Yeah, we're there.
Yeah, but you guys have cooked many a meal for us, and so what I want to do closing out is ask each of you to read another poem, and then I have one final question to close us out.
Okay. Jeez. Okay. I haven't got a poem.
This is like dealer's choice. So you just flip through the closest book near you and read the poem that shows up, because all of them are good. I know that.
This poem is mentioning Lucille Clifton, a great poet, right? We agree to that.
Well, look, she's right behind us.
Yeah.
She's on the bookshelf.
She is.
That's right. Well, not only that, but she's on my desk too.
And she laughs, man. I read the first time I read Lucille, I was in solitary confinement, and I thought, I have never read somebody who made. And in fact, it was so strange because she had this range of poems.
Yeah.
And y'all know the story, but it's just so much range in the work, and so much capacity, and so much contrariness. Like in a generation where everybody was renaming themselves.
I know. Yes. No. Yes. That's exactly right. Right. You're so right. You're so right about that. Yeah.
And it was profound. It made. I was in a dark spot, and I felt like I had to figure out how to be me. And reading her work gave me that agency. And again, this is the joy of Cave Canem. If Cave Canem doesn't exist, I don't meet Lucille Clifton.
Yeah.
And I think it's just like really important for me to say that to both of you, because writers, we all getting out. We trying to make a living. We trying to find love. We trying to make babies, and sometimes we don't get a chance to tell the people who we love and who have paved the way for us, like, thank you. And I was happy to do this mainly because it was my opportunity to say thank you. I was a young kid coming out of prison with very little prospects. And the one prospect and hope I had was that I could do something meaningful with my pen. And when Cave Canem said yes, I was like, man, shit, I'm good. It literally laid the foundation for like everything I've done since then. And so I deeply, and in all seriousness, it profoundly changed my life. It gave me a model when I was in prison. It introduced me to more writers who have touched me in ways that I couldn't really describe. Most of my best friends I met at Cave Canem, and it is really hard, I think, for me to even try to describe how immeasurable your impact has been. But you guys are a veritable library, and you have actually created a library of writers, and I think it's important for me to say that to you. So please read one more poem, and then we'll all go drink. I've been drinking water this whole night, so I'm gonna go get a real drink after this.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm beginning to think that the reason why I write poetry is so that I can have these great conversations.
Yeah.
Because it's all about the conversation at Cave Canem. The writing produces the conversation produces the writing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's a New Orleans roach in this poem because they have the biggest palmetto bugs in the universe in New Orleans. And when I stayed there for 7 months, I decided I'd do a little research. And so this poem is watching a roach give birth on YouTube. I think of Lucille Clifton meeting God. And the library in this poem too. When I watch it push out the purse half the size of its own body that contains 100 jelly-like nymphs and takes a molasses slow 24 hours, I wonder, is it she, like us, pushing with all she's got? Or is hers a painless birth, like we like to think of Mary, without a smear of shit or blood? Why does God make every damn female have to work so hard and suffer? Lucille, even after breast cancer, even after her kidneys failed and the twice weekly dialysis, didn't get really mad at God until her youngest girl, Frederica, died of a brain tumor at 35. Then she didn't speak to God for years. Not until her granddaughter, Bailey, was born did she give thanks again, saying part of her lost daughter had returned. How she loved and praised it. Toward the end, she told me she wasn't angry at God anymore, but that when she got to heaven, she had some very tough questions for him. Once Lucille visited a grade school in Maryland where, walking through the library, she noticed a distinct lack of color on the shelves. Where are the books with Black children in them, she asked. The assured librarian had a swift reply. We don't have any Black children in this school, so we don't need those books, she said. Well, you don't have any bunnies in this school. Books. Poor God, I thought, who, having made her shining brain our brilliant morning star, must have looked up and seen her coming.
Yes. God, that's a wonderful. That is so perfect. And thank you for reminding me about her, about her being contrary, because that's exactly what happened to me too, right? This was happening back when we're all trying to figure out how to be nationalists, right, and stuff like that, and change their names, stuff like that. And I wasn't making the grade, right, because all the people, all the cadres that I was hanging out with, I was being too, this and that and the other thing, you're writing about yourself. And Lucille was the way through that, right? Lucille was the person that was telling me, that's okay, you can do that, that's okay. You also reminded me of the first time I ran to the first book, another book that impacted me was Copacepic. By Yusuf Kameniaka, that I actually found a library, found in a used bookstore, and how it was kind of like finding a beacon, right? Another Black poet, right? Male poet, right? And a Wesleyan poet. Back then, Wesleyan was a really, really big deal. But what I'm going to read is an older poem, because he also reminded me the best job I ever had besides teaching was being a shelver in the Princeton University Library. When
Whoa!
Yeah, right, yeah, exactly. I was a shelver at the Princeton University Library, and I wrote my first book, cartoons, in the Princeton University Library, right, because I was the it was a job where you had to show up, every day, but there's only two really heavy periods of dealing with the books. That's at the end of each semester, right? Summer, and the summer there's nothing to do. They had grad students taking care of moving the books around. And so you'd come in, put away 5 books, and then you were there for the rest of the day. So I simply just came in, did my 5-6 books, and then just disappeared. Found a student carrel because I had a pass key, and just started writing. So I wrote a poem about being a shelver. It's not a great poem, but I thought it's a library poem, so I might as well just end it with this. And we were very proud of being shelvers. It was a really, we were really down with that, right? We did this really well. We were very good about that. Anyway, the shelver. I am the one who goes to sleep with my hands dreaming of the spines of books. It is heroic work to try to bring order to chaos. We look like peddlers pushing our little carts, except they are brimful with propaganda instead of fish. Here is a job where perfection is anonymous, like a maid who turns down a perfect bed only to have it ungratefully violated by tourists.
Ooh. Yeah, that was. I got to tell you both one more time. We honor your work, as like essentially literary activists. We honor your work as organizers and as builders and as creators. But the truth is, though, we honor your work as poets. I got so much joy out of Cornelius just laughing during reading your poem, Toi, because I think all good poems should demand that we respond.
Yes.
And I've never had a better moment than when I walked into a library and I'm just looking for my book and I hear somebody laughing in the stacks, enjoying what they're reading.
Yeah.
I think that is just a beautiful thing. So I thank the New Haven Public Library. I thank you both. And I should say that you can find all 3 of us hanging out in a New Haven Public Library in the stacks. Go check our books out, and definitely keep visiting the library. We thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Really was.
Bye, guys.
Bye, folks.
We thank you so much. Wow. I think you all know why we can be proud to call Dwayne Betts a New Havener, and with their papers here in New Haven, Toi Derricotte and Cornelius Eady, New Haveners. The chat on YouTube and Facebook has been lit up during that conversation, and Patrick Dunn, our extraordinary backstage producer, is sharing some of those comments. They really are life-giving. Swoon, sublime. What beauty. My favorite thing this year. This program is feeding my heart and my soul. Dwayne, Cornelius, Toi, thank you so much. And as Dwayne noted, go to the public library and check out their books and read their works and pass it along. We have more to come this evening, much more. So stay with us for the next moments. We have music, we have the Noah Webster Award, and we will have words from a Pulitzer Prize-winning biographer who's another New Havener, among many other things. Keep the chat going on Facebook and on YouTube, and we're very happy that we have more people watching live tonight than we've had in past years on site, which have always been good crowds too. So it's great that we're tiding ourselves over this year together virtually, and we're so lucky to have had the virtue of that conversation of Dwayne Betts, Toi Derricotte, and Cornelius Eady. As your chat has shown, It really has been life-giving. We're about to hear from another great New Havener, some great music that will lead us into the next part of this evening. Remember the public library, not just today, but every day. You see on the scroll some ways that you can provide support directly to the public library. We appreciate all that you do to give your time, talent, and treasure to the public library. And now, back to Shana.
Yes, what a wonderful way to celebrate the library, to celebrate poetry, to celebrate Mardi Gras. And now, after you've had that kind of wonderful conversation, because we have a lot more coming, but we want to energize you a little bit, right? If you were here in the library, we would start the dance party right about now. That's right, you would be dancing in the library. And so in order to have that kind of energy flowing, we have a special performance for you. So I have the pleasure of introducing Thabisa, and now she is originally from South Africa. She is a songwriter, activist, singer, but she calls New Haven home, and we are so happy about that. Again, if you've been to Mardi Gras the last couple of years, you would have heard her beautiful music. She would have gotten you up and moving. So speaking of getting up and moving, I am going to invite you all to go ahead, stand up, break that gravitational pull from that computer screen, because I know we were so enthralled in that conversation. But I want you to kind of move and sway to the music of this beautiful song called Te Amo that Thabisa has pulled out of her little back pocket that's actually going to be on an upcoming album. So you're getting a sneak peek and listen to this song. So join us with those smooth sounds and sway to the music as we celebrate with Te Amo, we celebrate the library and Mardi Gras.
I swear by the moon and the stars, there's no Go at it.
All right, all right. Good evening, everybody. I'm John Jessen, your city librarian, dancing up here live in the children's room at the Mary Ives Library here in downtown New Haven. We're so sorry you can't be with us tonight in the building, but we are so much looking forward to the day when you can come back, more so than we already are. I'm here tonight to present the Noah Webster Award, which was the first award, one of the first awards the library gave at its inaugural Mardi Gras celebration back in 1999. This award celebrates a community member who feeds a passion for education and literacy by providing tools to enhance, broaden, and deepen a literate and engaged populace. Our city has been very challenged this past year, but amidst all these challenges, we have seen our friends, our neighbors, and our community members come together. In the spirit of celebrating this commitment, we are bringing back the Noah Webster Award to recognize a member of our library community who inspires us all to achieve these common goals. This year's recipient is the absolute definition, pun intended or not, she is the definition of a talented, passionate, and tireless library supporter committed to the library's mission. It is my honor to present the 2021 Noah Webster Award to Elsie Blackshirt Chapman. Elsie's dedication to building relationships in New Haven was evident the moment she arrived in New Haven almost 15 years ago after a successful 30-year career at IBM. She quickly became a remarkably active member in our local community. Elsie is a past president of the New Haven Free Public Library's Board of Directors, and she's also a past president of the New Haven Free Public Library's Foundation Board of Directors. Of course, most recently, Elsie was the driving force behind the Stetson Capital campaign. The new Stetson will open later this year in the Q House, and it was Elsie's determined and inspiring advocacy for the new location that was instrumental in making it a reality. Elsie continues to forge connections to help the library build the capacity to sustain the NHFPL into the future. She continues to participate in our programs as they pivot to the virtual spheres. She continues to give back enormously from the deep wells of information that she collected about the New Haven Free Public Library by observing, listening, and learning. It is this combination of steadfastness, passion, curiosity, and knowledge that makes Elsie Chapman an invaluable asset to the New Haven community. And the New Haven Free Public Library is so grateful to have her as part of our community. But don't just take my word for it. Here are a couple more friends who will share why Elsie is so deserving of the 2021 Noah Webster Award.
Congratulations, Elsie, on this wonderful and well-deserved honor. I am so happy for you and so proud of you and so pleased to be able to call you a friend and my friend. You are what my family describes as true blue, always there, always sincere, always lending a helping hand. This honor is so well deserved, and I am just so pleased, so very pleased that you are being recognized for all of the hard work that you do for all of us in this community, both as someone who works in the trenches with those who need, and also all of your leadership to lead us to continue to do the hard work that needs to be done. This is such a wonderful honor. I hope you know how much we treasure you and how much I treasure you as my friend and as my sister. Congratulations.
Good evening, distinguished guests, friends, neighbors, and bibliophiles. The Noah Webster Award provides the perfect occasion to recognize and celebrate Elsie Chapman's more than 15 years of distinguished leadership service for the New Haven Free Public Library. Elsie will undoubtedly seize the occasion to remind us of her late beloved mother, Elsie Blackshear's admonition that volunteering is simply the rent you pay for the privilege of living on earth. Well, I think we can all agree that Elsie has paid in full. Indeed, she has paid it forward. I wanted to share with you a few of my thoughts about why Elsie is so deserving of the Noah Webster Award. First, she shows up, or to put it another way, Elsie participates fully in the life of the library and all it has to offer. She regularly attends library programs, she visits all the library branches, and she exercises her library card so regularly and expertly that she prepared a handout for the Library Foundation Board about 100 different ways you can use your library card. Of course, Elsie's virtues don't stop with simply showing up and taking advantage of all the library's offerings. Elsie shows up prepared. That is to say, she does her homework. During my tenure as city librarian, Elsie always gave testimony at the Board of Alders' annual budget hearings for the library. And why were her remarks so compelling? Because they were authentic and she was able to speak from firsthand experience and direct engagement with library services. So to review, Elsie shows up and she shows up prepared. But third, she shows up prepared to lead. That is, she wants to rally you to her cause. And in this case, we're very lucky because the library is her cause. Characteristic of a true leader, Elsie always takes the first step, or often the first giant leap. And you can be assured that she will never ask you to take a step where she hasn't undertaken it first herself. It was a privilege to launch the Stetson Library Next Chapter campaign with Elsie at the helm of the Library Foundation Board, without ever calling attention to her own transformational gift. Elsie speaks with conviction to potential donors about the value to the community of the Stetson Branch Library. And soon, when the doors of the Q House open on Dixwell Avenue, the most recent manifestation of Elsie's passion for the New Haven Free Public Library will be on full display. Please join me in raising a virtual glass to Elsie Chapman, and until we can greet her and toast her distinguished leadership service to our library and our recognition through the New Haven Library's Noah Webster Award. Congratulations and thank you, Elsie.
Thank you, John, for those kind words and this great honor. I'm humbled and proud to be a recipient of the New Haven Free Public Library's highest honor, the Noah Webster Award. I also want to thank the entire library staff for their dedication, commitment, and hard work during this pandemic. They've managed to navigate keeping the library as accessible as possible to the communities they serve. I so thank you. Speaking of Noah Webster, you know his dictionary defines hope as a desire of some good, accompanied with an expectation of obtaining it or a belief that it is obtainable. Well, hope was what I had when after retiring from IBM and leaving the town of Ridgefield, Connecticut, I relocated to New Haven in 2003, not knowing anyone, but knowing that I would find fulfillment in a culturally diverse, ethnically diverse, economically diverse, and racially diverse city, complete with all the joys and challenges that come with living in a city. Since I believe, as so many of you know, I believe that volunteering is the rent you pay for taking up space on this planet, I intentionally got immersed in this city and willingly volunteered my time and whatever talents I had to different organizations. My hope has been fulfilled beyond my expectations. My first and certainly my longest serving volunteer role has been with the New Haven Free Public Library, either on the library board, starting with Jim Wellborn, the late Jim Wellborn, city librarian, and continuing on to the Library Foundation Board. And I'm grateful for having had both opportunities. Carla Hayden is the 14th Librarian of Congress. She's also the first woman and the first African American to hold this position. And she once said, "Libraries are a cornerstone of democracy, where information is free and equally available to everyone." And she added, "People tend to take that for granted, and they don't realize what's at stake when that is put at risk." Never take libraries for granted. Never take your library for granted. Now, we know that the New Haven Free Public Library is a visible representation of democracy. I've always considered it the great equalizer in our community because no matter your economic situation, your ethnicity, your political views, your sexual orientation, your age, your religion, whether you are looking for a job or are currently a CEO, whether you have a home or are homeless, the New Haven Free Public Library welcomes you. It's known as a safe, neutral space. We know that the times in which we currently find ourselves are among the most testing in recent history, with discord in the nation, a national pandemic, and fiscal stress at the city, state, and national levels. These are times when libraries, these engines of literacy and education, matter more than ever as places for reading, thinking, learning, and growing. How I look forward to the time when we can once again gather in all our library locations, in Ives, Maine, in Fairhaven, in Stetson, in Wilson, in Mitchell, and in the Bookmobile. I look forward to book club gatherings, to the sounds of voices, to browsing through the newest book arrivals, to the chess games and all the community programs and meetings. That said, as I think about and sorely miss these spaces, I would be remiss if I didn't thank the many generous individuals, foundations, organizations, and corporations that have invested in the success of this library over the years. We're not financially where we want to be, but we are in a much better financial place than we were a decade ago. And I thank you for your continued support. And finally, remember that we must continue to value the fact that the New Haven Free Public Library is free. We must continue to value the fact that the New Haven Free Public Library serves all. We must continue to value the fact that our library is a highly trusted institution rooted in the neighborhoods it serves. And we must continue to value the fact that our library is central to the health and vitality of the greater New Haven community. Thank you for being here this evening to celebrate our library, and thank you again for this honor.
Gosh, it has been my pleasure to actually be able to serve on the board at a time when Elsie was serving on the foundation board. And she is just such an inspiration to all of us and an example of the love and the people who make up the community of the New Haven Free Public Library, and of course, New Haven, the city as well. And so again, congratulations, Elsie, and it really is a blessing for all of us to have you as part of the library and the library community and New Haven. But of course, that community is made up of so many different people, volunteers, staff, people in the community, those who come in these doors, out the doors. And that support is just so wonderful. And what Elsie said, just about the fact that we look up all these different ways that we can support the library. And so however that, resonates with you, just take some time to think about that, because we know how important our libraries truly are. And we're going to take just a moment to hear from some other people who are part of our community about how much they love and support the New Haven Free Public Library.
Hey y'all, I'm Babs Rawls-Ivy, and I just wanted to take a few moments to tell you how excited I am about the New Haven Free Public Library Mardi Gras. The library for me is the center of community. Whether I'm in the Hill, whether I'm in Westville, whether I'm in Fairhaven, or just downtown, I love the library. And the Stetson, of course, on Dixwell Avenue. So listen, support your local library and be a part of community. I'll see y'all.
Hi, my name is Maciel.
And I'm Monica.
And I'm a proud New Haven resident and also proud mom of 2 young children. And I'm very grateful for the free books at the New Haven Public Library.
And I have been grateful that the New Haven Library has been keeping all kinds of videos and activities up to date for my teenage boys to access during this time of remote learning. We both want to say,
thank you,
New Haven Library.
Thank you for this last book, and thank you for this star book. Now Tifa's turn.
I love the library because it works, because we all use it, and it connects us to each other, and it spreads wisdom and creates community, and it's the beating heart of the city.
The library is a place to hear Daddy read books.
That was so great. Libraries are not forces of nature that just sort of exist on their own. They are created by people. They are used by people. They are sustained by people. And that's why it's so wonderful to have all of you with us tonight to celebrate your public library, to celebrate the public library. I think we can all agree that in a time when information is essential for public health, in a time where information is essential so that we can preserve our democracy, and in a time where getting to know the truth is important so that we can confront the plague of white racism and really make progress in our town, in our state, and in our nation, public libraries matter more than ever. And so it really is wonderful that you're here tonight celebrating the public library. 4 years ago, at the Mardi Gras party, right here in the Ives Main Library, we launched an epic campaign to raise support for the new Stetson branch, the next Stetson Library on Dixwell Avenue. We set an ambitious goal, including an aggressive community challenge, to raise money to add to that given by the state and by the city of New Haven, the core pillars of support for this new building. Tonight, 4 years later, we're happy to announce that thanks to you, thanks to this community who cares, that challenge has been met. Let's hear from a number of the people involved, from the co-chairs, the honorary co-chairs, and by the tri-chair of that campaign with Elsie and me, Althea Norcott. Now we'll hear from Mayor Tony Harp, President Peter Salovey, and Althea Norcott about what you have done in the next Stetson campaign.
evening, friends of New Haven from near and far. Thank you for supporting the New Haven Free Public Library. Recent times powerfully remind us how vital public libraries are to the health of our community and the health of our democracy. As Yale alumnus David McCullough has said, freedom is found through the portals of our nation's libraries. Everyone needs access to information and education to be healthy and to grow. We need libraries to thrive, for democracy to survive, and opportunity to expand. I have been proud to support the New Haven Free Public Library as an alder, a state senator, mayor, and neighbor. The Stetson branch in Dixwell is particularly important to me and a special place in my heart. I was delighted to serve as honorary co-chair of the Next Stetson campaign with President Peter Salovey. I joined Peter in saluting the campaign co-chairs, Elsie Chapman, Mike Moran, and Althea Norcott. All of the donors as well have made this campaign a success, so congratulations to all of you. In New Haven, we know Black Lives Matter. Thanks to you on Dixwell Avenue, we also know that Black libraries matter. I want to thank Diane Brown and her staff at Stetson for the work they do in helping to build our community. And I want to thank all of you for recognizing how vitally important this is to that community, but to New Haven as well. Thank you and congratulations.
Yale has been a part of New Haven for more than 3 centuries, and libraries are essential to both Yale and New Haven. For example, Yale's Sterling Memorial Library is at the center of campus, and on its facade it says, "The library is the heart of the university." So too, the New Haven Free Public Library is the heart of New Haven, and the Stetson branch is the heart of Dixwell. That's why Yale made a leadership contribution to the campaign for the next Stetson. My wife Marta and I have called New Haven home for 4 decades. The success of this campaign reminds us how committed and compassionate a community this is. As honorary co-chair of the campaign, I say thank you to everyone who contributed. Special thanks to the Seedlings Foundation for the Community Challenge Grant, and to all the community donors who met that challenge. Thanks to all of you. The heart of New Haven beats strongly.
Greetings, everyone. So glad that you could join us this evening. It was such an awesome event. Stetson Branch Library sits on Dixwell Avenue. The service area includes Dixwell neighborhood and New Hallville neighborhood, both of which are the 2 largest African American populated neighborhoods in New Haven. The collection at Stetson Branch Library reflects those 2 neighborhoods. The African American collection, which has been called in the past, is one of the largest collections of Black books in a public library in one setting in New England. We're going to be changing the name of that collection to the African Diaspora Collection to include Black people from around the world, so we're very proud of that. All of the programming, the majority of the individuals that visit Stetson Library, that utilize the space, are of the Black diaspora. That's what makes Stetson Branch Library unique. The community is ecstatic about the new library coming. It's been a long time coming. The Q House has been a long time coming. I get messages, I get phone calls, I get emails, people wanting to know when the new Stetson Library and the Q House is going to open. We're very much looking forward to going across the street. We're looking forward to collaborating with the Hill Health Center, the Senior Center, and the Dixwell Community House for programming. Going across the street, we will continue to do some of the programs that we had done in the current location. However, we are able now, because of space and technology, we're able to expand those programs. The lower level will be dedicated to juvenile and children's services. That floor will have thousands of books from the Black Diaspora collection. Going up on the second level, we will have a teen space upstairs that is dedicated to just teens. We will have a teen incubator space. We will have a maker space. We're looking forward to expanding what we've already provided for the community. I'd like to take the opportunity to give a special thank you to Elsie Chapman, who has received the Noah Webster Award this evening. She's a very involved board member. She has participated in many, many programs at Stetson Branch Library. Many individuals from the community know her. She has advocated and has really worked hard to build funds that allowed us to build the Stetson Branch Library. So congratulations to you, Elsie. Well deserved.
Good evening and happy Mardi Gras. What a great celebration this is, even during such a difficult time in our history. Although we are not meeting in person, it cannot diminish the joy we all feel. I am honored to have been a tri-chair of the Stetson Library, the Next Chapter Committee, that has exceeded its goal of raising over $2 million for this very special library that has been in the Dixwell Newhall neighborhoods for over 100 years. For decades, Stetson has been the epicenter of cultural heritage and educational opportunities for the people in these communities. Stetson's large collection of African American literature, unique programs, and open door policy have provided a safe, enriching place for many, young and old alike. But the library's most important asset is its people, dedicated staff deeply connected to the cultural fiber of the neighborhood, community partners and organizations who proudly call the Stetson Library home, and thousands of patrons who depend on the resources and services found within its doors. From the beginning of this campaign, it was important that library users and community members feel a pride of ownership in the new library. Seedlings Foundation set an ambitious community goal with a matching challenge grant of $250,000, matching all gifts of $50 to $10,000, dollar for dollar. We knew that community participation in the fundraising campaign would be critical to its success, but we have been astounded by the response. From our Dixwell and Newhall neighbors to residents across the city and community groups throughout the state, you all have come together to make the dream of the new Stetson Library a reality. Thousands of people, local churches, fraternities and sororities, unions, student groups, community partners, and other nonprofits, and so many generous individuals and families have recognized Stetson's importance and stepped forward during these difficult times to meet this community challenge goal. We thank you, and tonight we celebrate this milestone that you achieved. On behalf of all of us who work with Elsie Chapman on this successful undertaking, I would like to congratulate her on her well-deserved honor this evening. I am sure receiving the Noah Webster Award would be just another reason for her mother to be so proud of her. And I can just see her now beaming with that beautiful smile she had. During this fundraising process, Elsie has been an inspiration to us all. Thank you to everyone watching tonight and to all of the friends and neighbors who realize this community challenge goal for your support. And I look forward to seeing all of you at the new Stetson Library when we gather together again to celebrate this achievement. And since it's Mardi Gras, let's have fun and party tonight. Thank you again. Good night.
Thank you, Althea. It was fantastic to be a tri-chair with Althea and with Elsie. We thank all the people who made this campaign a success, including all of you who are watching, who are part of it. It gives us great hope, and we're so excited about the next Stetson opening later this year. It is not only Mardi Gras, it also is Althea Norcott's birthday. So send Althea some birthday love in the comments. And we've saved a piece of king cake for you, Althea. I hope it's the one with the baby in it. We're almost finished with this evening. Stay with us for a few more special moments. We can know we're almost through because I brought 4 jackets, and I'm on my 4th jacket. No more changes to be made. But before we go, a special word. I asked a dear friend and neighbor, Pulitzer Prize-winning biographer of Frederick Douglass, for his thoughts about libraries. So a word now from New Havener David Blight.
Hello, I'm thrilled to help support the New Haven Public Library. I grew up in Flint, Michigan. I went to Flint Central High School, which is right across a parking lot from the Flint Public Library. My mother worked in the administration building just across the street the other way. When it wasn't baseball season, I spent every afternoon from about 3 until 5 p.m. in a corner of the Flint Public Library, reading history books and listening to Edward R. Murrow's LPs of his famous radio show called You Are There, which were recreations of historical events. The Flint Public Library was one of my major paths into gaining a historical imagination. And I've also always thought this, that if we knew the world was going to end, and it's not, but if we did, we should all just gather in public libraries all over the United States, have an open bar and open stacks, and just have one grand debate about books and knowledge, because public libraries are the places where civilization has gone to be saved.
You know, Shana, David is right. Public libraries are where we go to save civilization. He's also right that the world is not going to end. And that's partly because public libraries will see us through. But his thought of a party in the public library is a good one. It's one we've had, obviously, and one that we've done. And so we can all look forward in that spirit to keep saving civilization and to being back here in the Ives Library, Mardi Gras 2022, when the circulation desk is transformed into a bar and we have great fun in real time in 3 dimensions. What do you think, Shana?
I say cheers to that. And of course, before this night is over, though, we just have so many thank yous to hand out, right? And to celebrate right here. And of course, thank you who are watching with us and celebrating with us online for our very first virtual Mardi Gras. You know, I just want you to know that this is that reminder that your library is fabulous and so accessible even online, right? And just again, those thank yous, because it's because of you that the support that we have that supplements, you know, the city's commitment to our operational expenses, but it's support from advocates, from community members, from our donors, from our volunteers, and from our community partners that makes this such a wonderful library. And so thank you so much for everything that you all are doing to support the library. And of course, that also means attending events like this one, right, Mike?
Absolutely. And I want to give a shout out to 2 people that you haven't seen this evening, Elizabeth Nearing and Patrick Dunn, who were very much with us backstage making all of this happen. And I've brought here on front of stage a couple other people who've done so much. You saw John Jessen, our great city librarian, and to my right, Lauren Bizio, who's the advancement officer and head of the New Haven Free Public Library Foundation. And to my left, my colleague at the Beinecke Library, Tobias Cropper, who's an incredible videographer and worked with us on all the videos that you've seen tonight. And so for Lauren, some king cake, and Shana's got some king cake, and John
That's right,
some
I
king
do.
cake, and Tobias some king cake, and I got some king cake. And there's a piece, as I said, that we saved for Althea, and a piece for Elsie, and a piece for Patrick. and a piece for Elizabeth, and there's a piece for all of you, because you have made this place the heart of New Haven. We want to give a special shout out to the lead sponsors this evening, to the Seedlings Foundation, to Yale University, and to the Beinecke Rare Book and Manuscript Library, to Comcast, to the Community Foundation of Greater New Haven, to the Seedlings Foundation, as noted for this evening, and for the Community Foundation. All of the sponsors, make sure to check out the program book that's online and thank the sponsors. Thank all the individual donors. All of you are amazing. This king cake is for you. Have a great evening, and we'll see you on site in Mardi Gras 2022.
Laissez-les, bon temps roulé, as they say, right?
I swear by the moon.